Sue here. Welcome to another episode of Scondiments, Sue's Condiments. And today I'm going to try a jam which I haven't made before, but this is from my Japanese Quince, also called Chaenomeles or Chaenomeles Japonica. I inherited the plant with the garden and it's been very slow growing, and it makes a nice flower in the springtime, but it also makes these lovely ornamental quinces which are actually edible. So I've had a look around and you can make jam from them just like you would a normal quince. They've got quite a fragrant aroma and I think they could make a pretty nice jam. So I've combined a couple of recipes that I found online, and I need around 600 grams of fruit once they're prepared. I've got 610 grams here, so I haven't quite got enough, and I'm just going to add some pears because I think they've got quite a nice light flavour and it won't detract from the flavour of the quince. So I'm going to prepare these now. They're quite small fruit. The recipes that I've read don't talk about peeling them, but I think the skin is quite thick and I don't know whether that would be a little bit tough in a jam. So I'm going to peel them. I know that's probably going to reduce some of the fruit a little bit, but it also talks about chopping them. They're quite a hard fruit. I'll show you the core. That's the inside, and they are related to the rose, and also I think they look quite like apple pips as well. They do contain a lot of pectin according to the recipes, so I'm not going to need any other pectin products in there. And one of the other things that it talks about is the fact that they do go brown quite quickly. So I've got some lemon juice in water here, and once they're prepared I'm just going to put them in that lemon juice to stop them oxidising too quickly. The pips come out quite easily. I don't really know whether that bit in there is tough. Never having gone into one of these fruit before, I'm not sure whether that bit needs to come out. That does come out quite easily. It'll perhaps take a small amount of scraping, but I'm going to try and preserve as much fruit as I can. Just with my peeler here. It's going to take a while, isn't it? I think that'll be better without those skins. They might be a little bit tough. So I'll carry on with those and come back when they're done. Well, as it turned out, that processing of those fruit that I showed you took 2.5 hours. And I can see why, in a way. They say making a jelly might be quicker, but I wanted to make the jam using the whole fruit. So I got to the point where I had some smaller ones and I thought that the reward for the effort put in wasn't going to be worth it. So I cut my losses and ended up with this amount that I then froze because I just didn't have time to make jam the same day. So I have here 360 grams, and I can make that up to 600 grams of prepared fruit using the pears. Just about. As well as my fruit, I have 400 grams of this preserving sugar. The granules are slightly larger and it takes me a little while longer to dissolve. And I've got 4 cloves. I'm going to use lemon juice ready squeezed, but you can use the juice of a whole lemon as well. And in here I've got some rose water. The recipe says to add water to just cover those, so I'm just going to add a little bit of water. I won't add too much. It's just really to stop them burning on the bottom of the pan while they defrost and soften. You shouldn't add the sugar at this stage because it actually hardens the fruit, so you want to soften the fruit first before adding the sugar. I've got the pears and the quinces separated now and spread out, so I'm going to add some more water just to come to the top of them. The lemon juice in the water when I was preparing them really did help to stop the quinces oxidising. I didn't do that for the pears and they have oxidised a little. It's just beginning to come to the boil now, and the recipe says that you should cook this for between 5 and 10 minutes to become soft. I haven't done this before, I don't know how long it's going to take. Now as they get softer, you can start to break any larger chunks up into smaller chunks. It depends on how big you want the chunks in your jam. I quite like large chunks, not too big, but I think I'm going to leave them pretty much the size that they are. Hopefully they won't break up too much. Maybe cut some of the larger ones up. But I can feel that they're getting soft now. I suppose it's been about 5 minutes now. I'll just test one. And yes, that's really quite soft. So I'm going to put the cloves and the sugar and the lemon juice and rose water in. Some people don't really like the smell of cloves, but I'm hoping that it will give a bit more of an apple pie flavour. I'm not measuring out the juice of one lemon, but that's about the juice of one lemon. And then for my rose water, I used some rose essential oil and put it with quite a lot of water, because one drop of rose essential oil can actually make a whole swimming pool smell rosy. So you don't need much, but the recipe says it makes it taste really lush, to quote them. And that was my 400 grams of sugar just gone in. Looks a bit like an apple pie base now. It has broken up quite a lot. Now you should stir this from time to time to prevent sticking. Now I've already cleaned and sterilised my jars. They be warming in the oven. This is my jam thermometer, and it's a very old one. It actually used to belong to my granddad, who's long gone, sadly. But here we are. I don't know if you can just see that. The printing's come off a little bit, but just underneath you can see that's the jam level, and it's about 104, just over 104 degrees for jam. So that's where I'm going to want to get it to. Just check the temperature now. I know I really should get another one, but I love using Grandad's because He was a great condiment maker. I think that's just something that people used to do a lot more in those days. I think the quinces have actually pretty much broken up, and it's the lumps of pears that you can see here. So that's interesting. It won't be reaching the jam setting point until enough water has evaporated off. It's the water that's actually keeping the temperature lower. I have read that if you're at higher levels above sea level, then you need to leave it to reach a higher temperature before you get to jam setting point. I'm not very far above sea level here. If you fancy taking some of the scum off, then now would be a good time to attempt that. The other way of just knowing that setting point is nearly there is when the bubbles start to glisten a little bit more. You can see when I stir that it's now getting quite superheated at the bottom. So if you keep stirring a bit better, then you will avoid a volcano. To me that started looking done, so I'm going to just turn the heat off now and test it for setting. Take some, put this onto my cold plate. Allow that to just and if you push that, you should be able to see it just slightly gels. Don't want to set it too hard. It tastes really nice. I do believe I'm there. I'm going to let that cool now and then come back and just pop it into some jars. I poured the jam into a jug because I find this an easier way of transferring the jam to jars rather than ladling as they suggest. That could be really messy. So I've got various jars. I wasn't quite sure exactly how much I'd make, so I'll start with the largest two and then see how much I've got. Probably just enough for those two. Quite like to have a little jar just as a taster jar. While that's still warm, I'll just put the lids on. It's still really hot actually. I'll clean them up a little bit later, but I just want them to cool down and for the vacuum seal to pop in. Hopefully it will. I've cleaned my jars up and labelled them. And the poppers on the lids popped in nicely, so I know that they're vacuum sealed in there. And I also made my little tiny label for my tester, which I'm going to have a taste of now. I always like to make a little tester for a taster. I'll just give this a sniff. It's a very delicate aroma. I can smell quite a lot of pear in there and a little bit of the quince. The jam's set very well indeed. I'm going to spread some on my toast here, just as a trial. Funnily enough, I'm not a huge jam lover, but my husband is. I'll just have a taste. When I tasted it when it was warm, it was quite lemony, but that seems to have mingled in with the whole flavour. And it is a really nice, delicate flavour. The taste of the quince definitely comes out a lot more than the pear in there. And I think it's retained its beautiful colour, sort of apricot-y colour. So I'm really pleased with that, and I will make that again. I'll probably try it as a jelly next time. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.